Hello, Rancho Santa Margarita. Shawn Gordon here, candidate 2018 City Council. I thought you might find it interesting to understand some of the family tree behind the City Council. Now, I actually made some notes to make sure that I have the numbers right. I'm going to say their full names, but I'm going to write their last names for the sake of brevity. All of this is public information. There's no tinfoil hat wearing stuff going on here. So, first of all, the city, as you likely know, was incorporated January 1, 2000. Now, Carol Gamble was part of the team that pulled that off. Thank you, Carol, and that team. Now, Carol has been on the council from 2000 to 2004, and again from 2011 to present. Right? She's been mayor 3 times and mayor pro tem 3 times. So that gives us about 13 years on the council. Next, we've got Tony Beal. Now, Tony was Carol's planning commissioner from 2000 to 2004. Now, you'll notice a pattern here. This is where he got on the city council, and he's been there from 2004 to present. And he's been mayor 5 times and mayor pro tem 3 times. Part of the number of this had to do with Jesse Petrola and Steve Barrick on the council. Now, Brad McGurr was Tony's planning commissioner. Brad came in the middle of a term when Gary Thompson left in 2009, and so he's been there. So he was planning commissioner from 2009 to 2014, and then he came in 2014 to present. So this is a little confusing because there was a vacancy and some people got appointed. In any case, let's see, he's been mayor once and mayor pro tem. Now, Mike Vaughn, our current mayor, was a planning commissioner for Brad from 2009. Oh, I'm sorry, so Brad was actually, let's see. Anyway, I think I've got a couple of dates a little bit wrong here in terms of Brad's tenure because of when he came in. So he's been on the city council from 2014 to present, and he's been mayor once, and he is not running for re-election. Now, Jerry Holloway, who was nobody else's planning commissioner and seems to have got there on his own, served from 2002 to 2012, and then again through 2014 to present. And he's been mayor twice. Now, of the 7 people running for the 3 seats, that's Brad and Jerry, Mike is not running for re-election. However, Mike's planning commissioner, Ann, has been selected by the existing group to fill his seat. So you see the pattern. Tony works for Carol, Tony gets on the council. Brad works for Tony, Brad gets on the council. Mike works for Brad, Brad gets on the council. Ann works for Mike, now they're putting her on the council. Or that's the intention. Now, it was interesting here, a little deep in the weeds, when you pull papers to run for the city council, it's a binder about this big. There's a bunch of things you have to do, forms you got to fill in, you got to get signatures. If an incumbent doesn't run, then the deadline to file is extended by 5 days. But the deadline was Friday at 5 p.m. Mike had pulled papers, but then chose not to run at the 11th hour. The problem with that 5 days is 2 of those days are the weekend. So the soonest somebody can get in is Monday to grab papers and get those signatures and get them verified and get on the thing. They get verified independent of that. But in any case, you can rapidly run out of time. what was interesting is the announcement for Ann at the time that Mike said he's not going to run was she already had endorsements from State Senator Pat Bates, Assemblywoman Mimi Walters, House Representative Mimi Walters, Assemblyman Bill Brow. She had a very extensive website up. So clearly this had been planned ahead of time. This is kind of how this works. Most people don't want to run against an incumbent. And so if the incumbent has somebody that they want to run, they wait to the last minute. It happened in all the cities around here. It's not nefarious, it's just that's how it works. But in that window, we had two other people get in, Roger and Wendy, in addition to Chris and myself. So that's all very interesting in terms of how that played out. Now, to understand some of these endorsements, Tony's wife works for Assemblyman Bill Brow. Now, Bill Brow put $5,000 into Tony's last city council campaign. Again, public information, you can do disclosure requests with the city. I'm not saying it's nefarious, just showing you what the family tree is, right? What's surprising, though, is the amount of money that people raised to run for city council. Now, my opponents each spent over $8,000 to defeat me. I was the only one running in 2016. By comparison, I spent about $300 and I got about 20% of the vote. The compensation for this position, with everything, I mean, the actual cash you put in your pocket is minuscule. I think it's $5,000 or $6,000 a year. So the whole compensation is $20,000, $25,000 a year. So, people, they have a fire, they want to get in, they want to do something, they want to help, I believe, when they start. But I think as time goes by, you become complacent. You lose that fire, you lose that urgency. And now you see people running and saying, if reelected, I'll do this. Well, why didn't you do it while you were already there? And a good example, the splash pad that we're going to go in Central Park. Why wasn't that done 10 or 15 years ago? There were more kids back then. We have less kids now. That's why Chiquita Ridge, when that was first started in the early 2000s, that litigation that finally completed and we took ownership of in 2009, we needed more sports parks at the time because we had so many kids. But the prices around here are fairly ridiculous. The odds of a burgeoning young population with young children at this point is pretty slim in the foreseeable future. And this is where a change of thought process and a change of leadership helps, because you have people who are not emotionally invested in the time and the money that was spent on a project like Chiquita Ridge, which is clearly going nowhere, and they have the ability to extricate themselves from it. So you'll also see things like, it's a safe city, citing 2016 FBI stats. The new stats aren't out yet, but frankly, the city council, what do they directly have to do with it? It's mandated by law that we have to have a certain number of sheriffs based on the population in the city. Now, there were two positions open for years for preventative law enforcement. So that would be kind of like, your drug investigation and busts of dealers and such. Those were supposed to get filled about a year and a half ago. I'm not clear on the exact details, but it was canceled. Now, this does tie into the budget problem and law enforcement now being 58% of our budget. We were just approved for $9 million for the next year. I believe it's going up the year after. So all of those reserves that you see referenced by incumbents, those are going to decline, and they're going to decline faster and faster because we don't have that fourth car dealership that was so important in terms of building up those reserves. And it hasn't been in there, 10 years or so. I don't have the date in front of me. So that is going to be a problem. There's so many more things that we could talk about. I don't want to go too far in the weeds. There's a lot of inside baseball. All of this information is publicly available. Like I said, people have argued with me about the budget situation, but frankly, if your income is relatively flat, which ours is, and our expenses are rising, you will run out of money. It's simple math. And I haven't seen anything with regard to bringing more business in that would generate more tax revenue. all of those plans were centered around the development of Chiquita Ridge, which doesn't appear it will ever happen. So I'm Shawn Gordon. I'm running for City Council. I hope I have your vote. Thank you.